everyone, and welcome to Fresh Reviews. I'm your host, Tower. I'm here with the awesome content creator and knight errant, the lovely Moon, and the best pawn on Earth, the pawn of all of the ages, the ninth pawn. He's sitting on the floor below me. He's under the floor. It's magic.
I am not under the floor.
He's under the floorboard.
We'll hear the beating of his heart.
That's why you can't see him.
It would just be a black screen anyways.
It's just darkness. Darkness! Okay, anyway. Today we're going to be reviewing the fourth episode of the Bad Batch Clone Wars Disney Plus show. The episode, once again, the name escapes me, so name of the episode is...
Cornered.
Okay. Cornered. For those of you who haven't watched this show before, there will be spoilers. If you spoilers bother you, like the video, put it on your watch later, go watch the episode, come back, and tell me why I'm awesome. And then, we can continue.
No, you gotta tell him why he's wrong.
Wow. That's hurtful from my own wife.
I mean, yeah, but I wasn't gonna say that.
But you were thinking it. But
I was thinking it.
Alright, so for those of you, you've had this warning. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we are actually going to go over basically a synopsis of the entire episode, and then we all go through, give our 1 to 10 score of what we thought the episode was and earned and why. I will start us off. So, episode starts off, they're in space, because I'm starting to feel like every episode, for the most part, is just going to start with them in space. And
running.
Problem.
Yeah. Well, it isn't. It isn't. But anyway, I don't want to get caught up. So, they're in space. They're having supply issues. They're having a bunch of issues. They're being tracked on the wanted list. And they're like, hey, bruz, let's go down to a planet. And they decide to go down to the planet of, I think it was Pantora, which actually got me excited because I just started playing Star Wars Squadrons for another review, and you can actually play as a Pantoran pilot if you unlock them. And I remembered them from the Pantora from the Clone Wars series because they did an episode or two where you're on like a moon of Pantora and you're dealing with those people. So that was kind of a nice callback to the Clone Wars. I don't know if that's why they chose Pantora, or they're just like, we're like, well, that's where they are in the galaxy right now, so cool, let's do that. Either way, I was excited to see that planet, as they said they were going to land on it. So they go to the planet, they land on it, they have an interaction with the dock manager, where they basically bribe the guy to not check their ship, because obviously they're wanted, and then they split up into a repair team and I'll say a repair team and a ground team. I feel like I'm watching Star Trek. Like we got the captain's ground team because this is kind of becoming a repetition in this show too. They did this last episode basically too. But anyway, and they split off, and from there I'm going to pass it over to Knight. So Knight, go ahead.
So, after bribing the totally not sleazy and totally not racist against Sullustan dock commander, he immediately goes off and calls someone, and I don't remember exactly how he refers to them. I think it's a ship name that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But he calls someone who looks suspiciously familiar to those of us who watched Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And, so for those of you who remember Fennec Sharn, or Shand?
It was something like
Shand.
that, yeah.
Fennec Shand. I have it open on the other tab. Cool.
Perfect.
And she pulls up a sheet that has a picture that has an image of Omega and says, basically says, if I catch her, it'll be worth your while. And we then cut back to the team doing groundwork things. Echo is dressed as a robot because Echo is otherwise completely conspicuous.
I did like that.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It's great.
And they need tech at the ship, and it's more fun if the ground team isn't the same team every time. And so we have them go off to try and sell all of their excess stuff, and Echo, and not Echo. Echo we'll start with Echo. Echo gets sold because he looks like a droid. which is pretty great. And then
and he's not too happy about that either.
He's not happy about that, especially because it's only 2,000 credits to start, and only gets raised to 3,000 credits.
I'm worth more than that.
You gotta respect a man who knows his worth.
Fair.
And in the meantime, because Omega is a little kid who's, only lived on Camino her entire life, she gets distracted by shiny things and fluffy things and gets lost in the city. And Fennec finds her, steals food for her, and then, I'll hand it over to Moon to continue.
Hunter realizes that she knocked things over and she took off after something. So he's following her through the city and realizes, that obviously she's wandered way beyond her limits, as most children do. So he's panicked trying to find her. He eventually catches up with Omega and Fennec, and Omega's like, well, she's just trying to help me find you guys. Hunter knows who it is, obviously, to some extent, and is like, you need to get away from her now. This is not going to be very long. So it ends up turning into Omega running away, more than usual, while Hunter is chasing Fennec down. Omega breaks free from the first encounter and continues running on her own, while Hunter tries to keep her distracted so that Omega can make it back to the ship safely. While this chase is going on, Hunter gets back to Tech saying, hey, I've created some noise here, get that ship ready to go ASAP. Tech's like, well, I don't have a crew for that. And this is where Echo's like, I'm good. I can do this. I don't mind being sold right now. I have a group here. Let me come back with you. Wrecker, go help find Omega. And of course, you run into the other bot back there that goes, I'm in charge. And Echo's like, no, you're not. But if you help me, you can be in charge sooner. So they shut off until they get to the ship. And I'll pass it over to Knight.
All right, at that point, the record kind of goes after, who did you call her, Fennec? Or?
Yep,
Yes,
Fennec.
Fennec? Okay, and basically gets clocked. He gets stomped and does not capture her. And Omega's going up the ladder and being chased by Fennec. And then she kind of locks the top. And as Fennec's struggling to get through the tower, she gets almost knocked off the tower. She's hanging. And Hunter chases after her with a speeder that he stole. And as they're, as he's coming up to the tower, Fennec takes the Omega and throws her on a vehicle and jumps himself. And what happens is a high-speed chase where eventually Hunter ends up with Omega and manages to get away after a fairly long action scene. And then they go to the spaceport where they're taking off right before Fennec gets there chasing them. And then the end shows the guy that originally turned them in talking to Fennec thinking she's going to kill him. And instead she just pays him a little bit of money and says, you know where to call me,
Yeah. You know how to reach me, look.
And then it kind of ends with them tearing off into space because that's how it always ends.
All right. So, with the story read out, we're gonna go into 1 to 10s, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, and why. And we're gonna start with Knight.
I'm gonna go with an 8.5
Okay.
because for the record, I gave the last one an 8, and while I think it's better, I don't think it's good enough to be the 9 that I gave the one before that. Honestly, this is what I want out of the show more. And I understand that that's probably not what everyone wants, but first off, because I know it's going to come up, they begin and end every episode in space. And I know that someone in this group, Tower, is going to complain about that. But honestly, I think that's a perfectly fine format, especially if Bad Batch is meant to be as much of an episodic series as Clone Wars. I think it works for what they're trying to do, and I think having that ability to vary up where they are, give us all of these little slices of life in the Young
universe.
Empire, and give us all of this through the Bad Batch having to visit place after place after place because something is always going wrong with the ship, because we're basically watching a Star Wars version of Firefly meets Republic Commandos. Except less criminal. Actually, a Star Wars Firefly would be amazing now that I think about it. Maybe that's closer to Mando, but oh well. Anyways, also Fennec is fun. I thoroughly enjoyed Fennec in the Mandalorian season 1 that I saw her in. I still haven't watched Mando season 2. I need to at some point. I do like that she's kind of being set up as one of the primary antagonists. That's not, Crosshair. Crosshair is important, and Crosshair has to have narrative weight. But I do like having a threat that doesn't have quite the same narrative weight out there. I think the difference between them facing off against Crosshair in a situation and facing off against Fennec is that Crosshair needs to have that payoff, right? He has this huge amount of narrative weight assigned to him just by virtue of being the previous teammate. He has to be a climactic thing. He has to be a season-ending thing. Fennec, on the other hand, Fennec can be just a villain for a couple of episodes. Yeah. It's how fast she tracks them is how often she gets to show up. And that's really easy to just manipulate behind the scenes as a writer. And Fennec is fun, Fennec is cool. I do like the personality of almost kind but not quite that she has in this. The only thing I don't like is that she feels less accurate than she should be. Because she had a reputation in Mando for being one of the deadliest assassins alive, and I kind of feel like she got Stormtrooper aimed. Though, I suppose I can't knock that too much because she wasn't...
Oh, sorry.
She wasn't, They can't just go having her one-shot hunter, right? Yeah. Because the show has to have some sort of continuation.
Omega also played a part in that too.
Oh, Omega did play a part in that, and admittedly, okay, yeah, that's fair. Plus, and she does one-shot wrecker, which really goes to show skill, because she's taking down someone we know is a beast in combat.
Can I throw one thing in there real quick?
Yeah.
It's also, I don't know the exact amount of years between this and Mandalorian, but she has a lot of time to grow her skill from there to there, right?
That's very fair.
So,
That's very fair. This is probably early-ish career.
Yeah. Because she looks similar, but a lot younger.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's fair. But yeah, I do like Fennec. I like Fennec as this is a character we made and we want to use them more, so we're going to add her to this series as a recurring villain. I very much like that. I like Fennec as an antagonist because we're gonna need a bounty hunter, and either they make a new one for the show or they give us one we are already somewhat invested in. And yeah, I like where it went. I like this episode. We get Omega not entire. It looks like Mega doesn't entirely understand why there's a bounty on her,
Right.
which is going to be fun because of course they don't want the party to have all the answers. But I do. So, final bit on the, because I know this is going to be a contentious topic, this video, based on how everyone was talking beforehand and how the synopsis went. On the format of and beginning and ending every episode in space, I can see how that could be construed as like annoying or boring or lazy storytelling. But honestly, I think it works better than having having each episode be having like multiple episodes on the same place. And I think it's better from a writing perspective and a design perspective, because we can't spend. I loved multi-part episodes in the Clone Wars, but some of the best episodes in there were one shot. My favorite episode of Clone Wars was a one-shot episode that's only like a one-off thing, and it introduced one of the cooler Separatist characters and had some really fun Anakin and Obi-Wan banter, and that's really all I went to the Clone Wars for. Not really, but still. But yeah, I think that this format works really well, and I think that they're doing it well.
Cool. Anything else?
So yeah. Not really. So yeah, 8.5.
Alright, cool. Thank you. I almost said it, but I'm going to say night. Night. Yes, okay. Moon! 1 out of 10 and why?
I'm going to go with about a 7. I wasn't here for the last episode, but I did watch the last episode, and crucial. But again, I'm gonna go to what Knight was saying. And
you almost did it.
I almost did. But with the format and everything, like, it makes sense for this because the Bad Batch is technically on the run, because Crosshair being that overarching story piece right now for them, he's hunting them almost in a way, but he's also trying to prove himself in this new galactic empire that's, being built because the war is over finally and whatnot. So if the in and out of space, for start and end, makes sense, because once they're found, they can't stay anywhere, so they gotta go. Especially knowing that now, after this episode, that somebody is clearly paying bounty hunters to come for Omega. So now, like, their concern is, and this could just be me from a teacher perspective or just, in general, but, like, now it seems like Hunter especially is very protective of Omega. So is Wrecker. Like, Wrecker immediately, like, oh, Hunter's down, I gotta go get her. Like, they very much are starting to build almost that family-like unit. And they even still are trying to get Crosshairs back into the team, or try to find a way to reconcile what he's doing. So having that more in-depth piece and showing in this episode how much of a child Omega is and how much she was sheltered from being on Kamino gives a lot more depth into their story in general and how much they have yet to learn and grow from by having Omega around.
Okay.
So, like, this was a lot more of where they need to grow, in my perspective. So, very good. And like I said, it's a lot of being protective over Omega, and now that they know that Fennec's on the the hunt for them. Now they realize they got to be more stringent and picky as to where they stop, how long they stop, and all of those things. Now they have to take more time in consideration and care for what they need and what they have to do.
All right. So what number did you say?
7.
7. All right.
Yep.
Cool. Thank
I'm
you.
going to pass it on to 9.
All right, 9th.
All right, I know I'm going to drive Tower crazy here, but this was a perfect episode for me. I can't give anything a 10, but I'm going to give this a 9.5.
Ooh.
It was very action filled. There's a couple of reasons I like this episode. It's action filled. Omega starts acting more independently, like she's taking care of herself in fights. You know, she lets those grain things go flying, and then, you know, she grabs onto the strap and, you know, it interferes with the fight a bit. I feel like she's becoming more of a real character in this. I also like that they fleshed out Echo a bit, because Echo was always the character I couldn't remember. You know, I know Wrecker, I know Hunter, I know Tech, but Echo's like the other guy. And the scene with him being sold as a droid was hysterical. And I love when he leaves and he's like, "You're not a droid," and he's like, "You got me for a bargain." You know, he's mad about the price he was sold for. And the other funny scene that I really like from this is when Wrecker just gets his clock cleaned by the bounty hunter.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I like the direction this is going, and also I like the format they're doing with the different planets, you know, and all of that. I give this a 9.5. This is a very solid episode for me.
All right, cool. Thank you, Ninth. All right, so a few things I need to preface before I give my review. I wouldn't mind the landing and leaving format if the episodes weren't so short. So, ever since the first episode was really long, it's the pilot, I get that. Second episode was significantly shorter, but it wasn't the pilot anymore, so I get that. Okay, they're going to keep them around 35 minutes. Now, since that, we've gone down in time every episode. So... Now, in a format like this, when you know how it's going to start and you know how it's going to end, if it fits with the story, okay. But if you're cutting down the time more and more and more, and you know that they have to fill the beginning and the end with this and this, that's what I have a problem with. Now, if these were 35-minute episodes, 30-minute episodes, somewhere in between there, I don't think it would be as bad. I still think it'd be a bit repetitious, but I don't think it would be as bad, and I could understand it. But because they keep cutting down the time is why I'm getting annoyed with it. Next thing I want to bring up, and this is a positive, the art was so much better in this one than the last
it was
episode.
spot on this episode.
I went back and rewatched the last episode because like I remembered I rewatched the review and I was like, yeah, I was giving him a hard time on the art. Maybe I was being rough. No, the art was
shadows,
weird. The lighting, the art, everything to do with those new characters like was terrible whenever their faces were on screen. The art for this episode was way better. This was a lot closer to episode 1 and 2's quality in regard to the art. So that was good. That's something I wanted to bring up. Seems the last episode I brought up that it was so bad comparatively. So I felt like I need to congratulate one good if I'm going to, burden one bad. So I wanted to bring that up. I think I would have enjoyed this episode more if it wasn't for the previous episode. Because... So in the previous episode, we have Omega acting one way. And in this one, it kind of feels like she jumps a completely different way. Like, she becomes, like... She was independent in the last one, but almost in a, like, token perfect character way. Versus this one where it was a more realistic, independent child way. And even though it kind of made me cringe a little bit because it was a child doing child things... I understood why they were doing it, and I can't dock them for that, because that is relevant to the context. So, because that jump from like last time where she's just crawling into the cave and perfectly figuring everything out to here is so jarring of just the like, okay, so this character's here, this character's here. Maybe if we had some better semblance of like a bunch of time has passed and talking with the guys, so she's changed. It feels too fast of a jump from one mindset to the other. Maybe there's a reason for that, but I don't get it. So for me, that takes a few points. Not a few points, but like a point. I'm trying to think of things you guys didn't bring up. I think the development of Omega's. What's up?
Can I make a quick comment about episode lengths?
Yeah.
So, ignoring the fact that Aftermath is an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because
that doesn't count.
It's the pilot. We're going to say pilot and therefore outlier.
Yeah.
And yeah. I'm going to also dismiss that by saying that the Clone Wars movie is probably about that long, because that's where this point is going. Yeah. The rest of the episodes fall into the length variation of normal Clone Wars episodes.
Yes, but the difference with the Clone Wars is it wasn't a continual story about a specific group. The Clone Wars was about the overarching thing. One episode you'd have it about Yoda and his guys. One episode you'd have it about Anakin and Obi-Wan. They were all over the place. There were segments of time where they stuck with one continuous thing. And it was one overarching story, but it was never like this, where it was one squad all the time. And heck, there were episodes about Jar Jar. Like...
I still think it's a fair point to bring up that I don't think that the episode length is too big of a deal, because I think as long as they don't go under like 25, 22 minutes, we're fine for that. And I honestly don't think that shorter episode. I don't want Cornered to have been longer. I'm just going to straight out say it.
Yeah.
I think that if the episode had been longer, it would have felt too long. And I honestly think that if replacements had been cut into 2 separate episodes and only added a little bit of filler, and it had been a 15-minute episode of just Crosshair, then I legitimately think that you would have been happier with it.
Yeah.
Even though it would have been the shorter episode. Well, I don't think that episode length is something to complain about.
Oh, I am complaining about it because of the format of the show. Now, once again, if the previous episode was split into 2 different episodes, and I think we actually talked about that last episode, where, okay, you have an episode for Crosshair and his group and an episode for the Bad Batch and their group. I think I actually brought that up during the previous review. That would have been fine, but I'm not complaining about length of episode for the sake of, oh, well, they need to have it be a certain length. I'm complaining about it in the context of, if we're going to have a format where we know the beginning and we know the end every episode, then there needs to be enough breathing room in between, for me personally, to actually be able to enjoy the episode. Because if I know the beginning and I know the end already, then the middle has got to be like really nice. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's just me though. I'm not, you don't have to agree with that, but for me,
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Okay, let me try rewording it a bit. Okay, so if you're watching, like, I don't know, I can't think of any other shows off the top of my head, but say you were watching something and you knew 2 parts of it, right? You knew the beginning, you knew the end. And like
I don't know, watching Infinity War after it came out, and therefore everything had been spoiled.
Yeah. So like, you know the beginning, you know the end, you just don't know what's happening in the middle. Now, to me personally, that makes the end kind of not as exciting, and it makes the beginning feel repetitive. That's my personal thing. So if that's the case, and you're gonna do that and cut down episode time, it's the combination of the two that's the problem for me. It's not the same. So like, if you want to do a 15-minute episode that is just every moment is perfect, okay. But if you want to do a 15-minute episode and I'm gonna spend 5 minutes doing the same exact thing, having a slightly different conversation about landing the ship on a planet and choosing the planet, and then 5 minutes of a firefight as I escape the planet, that doesn't leave much for new things. And that's where I'm at with it. So, and maybe this isn't
That's
a
good.
formula they're gonna. Yeah, what's up?
Would you like it better if instead of having that conversation, they had the old Clone Wars announcer do the "Danger in the Outer Rim" bit?
Honestly,
It's the same thing, except one of them uses an announcer voice and the other one isn't.
yeah.
That's all the opening is.
Except that it's so okay. So we're talking about the context of it taking time away from the episode and the length of the episode. If that meant that if they did that instead of the intro scene that they've done for the last 2 episodes, I would prefer that so that we could have that extra time to get to see Echo interact with the world, or not Echo, oh, wow. Omega interact with the world, grow her character. Echo interact with the robots, grow his character, because he's been absolutely not focused on as much as the other guys. In this episode, he got like
he's the one I keep forgetting about.
If I didn't watch the Clone Wars, I wouldn't have a clue who Echo was.
Yeah. My point being,
yeah,
I don't think it would take any less time. And which intro would you prefer? Which intro style? And do you think that this intro style is better or worse than that, without any like time things? Because I honestly think it would be the same amount of time spent on that intro.
If the time were exactly the same, I would prefer this, but I honestly don't believe it is. And if it is, it doesn't feel like it. Because I just watched an episode of Clone Wars yesterday, and like, it doesn't feel the same to me. And it might be, but to me it doesn't feel the same. Because the intro is like this quick little quote, quick little talk, done.
I think part of that is the difference between something like... It is the difference between... The intros are always like these fast cut, fast talking synopses. It's... Yeah. I'm forgetting the word. It's the speech that begins every Shakespeare play. And
prologue? No, it's the end. Prologue.
Yeah, the prologue. I think there's a fancy word for it that's specific to that style of theater.
Yeah.
But like it's the 2 noble houses, both alike in infamy, in fair Verona, where we set our scene. That like speech that's the synopsis of the plot. That's what the Clone Wars did over a fast cut fight scene, and this is instead setting up by having the characters talk about it. And I 100% think, even though it's going to feel slower, even if it takes the same amount of time, I would prefer having the characters talk about what's happening rather than having some admittedly really coolly voiced narrator tell me what's happening.
See, but it's not just the intro, it's the ending too. It's not just... If it was just the intro, even that I could live with. But it's not. It's also like, so, and once again, this might change next episode. I'm not saying this episode is better than the last episode, hands down, by far for me. It's not a terrible episode, but this format of doing the exact same with slightly different wording intro and the exact same with slightly different shooting ending of the last 2 episodes is kind of meh to me. It loses some of the wonder, some of the excitement. It's like when you find out something new about the Force, you're like, oh, that's cool, you know? If you just find out the same thing about the Force, or like, it's like, if you Fast and Furious, right? How many times can you see the car fly over something at the very last moment, at the last possible thing, at the end of the movie, before you realize, oh, my suspension of like being sucked into this story is gone.
Fast and Furious is just a fantasy game where cars are magic.
Yes!
And as long as you car hard, you can do anything you want.
And I enjoy Fast and Furious, but I watch it for that mindless entertainment. Yeah. That's not what I'm watching this for.
I also legitimately don't understand why you think that having the end discussion be on the shuttle is necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not that the end discussion is on the shuttle. Is that for the last 2 episodes, if you look at like how they framed the escape and just how that whole part feels, it's just like, it feels the same as the previous episode. And to me...
It feels more textbook.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the first time I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then the second time I was like, okay. And it's like, okay, can we have an episode where maybe they use their brains to get out without getting caught? Or can we have an episode, like, they can
have
still...
Wrecker, they can't do that.
But they can. Like, these are guys that have done so many combat operations. You can't tell me that they're gonna get spotted on every single time. And, like, or that the writers couldn't come up with some other way for them to leave them blasting off again like Team Rocket. Like...
I mean, I think they can, but I also think that they intentionally have a lot to learn before reaching that point.
If they weren't, like, hardcore veterans, I'd be like, okay. But because of who they are, I'm very much in disagreement.
I think the reason why is that they're not used to being on this side of the law, right?
Yeah.
There's the difference between trying to not get caught in a war zone and trying to not get caught in a city.
Yes and no. So, but the thing is, like, so you could say that, but they've also been in, like, plenty of combat situations, I'm sure at this point, where they were in enemy territory and therefore were considered the other side of the law. Because when you're in a war zone and you're in the enemy's territory, you are, for all intents and purposes, an outlaw.
Well, then again, you also have...
And they didn't work with the regs a lot.
Well, they have their stuff.
Okay, but now we're getting...
Omega being a child is now a factor in there.
Okay, but
that's a variable that has not been completely flushed into the group to understand and know the plans.
That doesn't
and still
change
has those child tendencies.
Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that they're beginning the episode almost exactly the same and ending the episode almost exactly the same. And when you have... It's sort of like when you watch a prequel of something and you already know what's gonna happen. If you already know what's gonna happen, and not just what's gonna happen, but how it's going to happen, it's not as exciting. It can still be good, but it's not going to be as exciting because you know what's going to happen. I don't want to know what's going to happen. I want them to use their wits. Like, they could still leave the planet, but do it in a different way. Maybe they lose their ship. Maybe they don't lose their ship. Maybe they take out the guys that detect them and then they're able to get away smoothly. Maybe they pay someone off. Like, there's so many different scenarios than I'm running, I get shot at, I'm running, I fly. Like, I know there's more to it than that, but just for the sake of brevity. Because
agree to disagree, but...
Yeah, that's fine. And that's the point of the show. But, like, so for me, I definitely am docking him some points for that because it's a formulaic thing that I think kind of loses some of the wonder of the show to me. And with a series that started off so strong with showing you perspectives of things that you hadn't seen, and you thinking that's the vibe you're gonna get, to kind of turn into like this formulaic show, to me is not as exciting, personally. But there are some more positives too that I wanted to cover. For you to jump down my throat. Like I said, art was
quiet for a while there.
Yeah. Art was awesome. So that was good. The development for Echo, Ninth was touching on this. The development for Echo was the best in any of the episodes yet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If I didn't know who Echo was through the Clone Wars, I wouldn't really care about him up to this point. Because the writers weren't utilizing him at all, in my opinion. Because basically every time they were saying Echo, they were like, Echo, go follow Tech around. Okay. I know that's not exactly what it said, but basically that was the vibe I got. Whereas in this episode, they were like, Echo, you gotta save the day, man. It's your turn. You're up. Do it. I wanted more of that. I hope they do more of that, and I'm going to give them props for doing that and continuing to spread it out among the squad more instead of just focusing, on mostly Hunter and Wrecker.
Hunter.
Which I get Hunter's the leader, but like it's the Bad Batch squadron. You got to give all the members time, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. You guys, yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna say, for me, score-wise, it's better than the last episode. I'm worried about the formulaic approach. Oh, that was the one other thing I wanted to bring up. If that is the bounty hunter from Mandalorian, as cool of a character as she was in Mando, because I'm pretty confident it is her.
Yeah.
Oh, is it 100%?
It is 100% the same person as was in the Gunslinger episode.
So I'm kind of sad about that, because once again, I know she won't die. Which, if they end up putting her in a situation where it's like, could she die? You're just gonna know, oh, well, she won't die because she's in the Mandalorian. And for like a companion character, that's not as bad for me. But for an adversary that seems like it's gonna be coming back, that's not as... That to me kind of lessens some of the tension. It doesn't mean she can't lose, but if they ever try to write up like a hyped up moment, like maybe there's like the speeder chase, like any time during the speeder chase that she looked like she was in danger, in the back of my head I'm like, well, she's not actually going to get wounded significantly here, so I still loved the character. I loved how they did her. The art was perfect. The fighting was perfect. I liked that they didn't make her too powerful, because this is years before, and I feel like that progression felt natural to me. I like that her melee was really good with how like she decked Wrecker, right? But her sniping, because that was her big thing in Mando, wasn't quite there, so that gives room for the character to develop. Which is good. Characters need room to develop if they're going to be long-term characters. Otherwise, they get kind of meh over time. But I think she was done well, but just I kind of wish they had done a different bounty hunter, because if she's going to become a reoccurring villain, there's no high stakes for me when she's there in regard to her well-being. There is for the heroes, but there's not for her.
As a note,
what's up?
we have seen her come back from literally an on-screen death where we saw the body before.
Yeah, but she was... Oh, yeah. But there's a reason for that, and it's very noticeable afterwards why. Like, you can't do that in the same way twice, because that would kind of... I don't want to spoil that in case someone hasn't seen that, but you know what I'm talking about. Because we only warned about spoilers for this. So, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so, I don't know. It was a good episode. I definitely would recommend watching it. I do not recommend... Honestly, I think if you want to enjoy this episode more, my recommendation would be skip the previous episode. Go from the second episode to this one, and I don't really think you'd be missing much. And except for maybe like the end of the last episode. Yeah, like the end of the last episode. Take everything before, then jump to this. And yeah, that's my recommendation, because it is a good episode. It does deserve to be watched. I'd give it... You said I gave the last one a 4?
Correct.
And 5 is average. This is above average.
Well, you were at 4, you went to 6.
No, he ended at 4.
Okay.
I double-checked that
right.
before we started.
That's what I thought.
I'm going to give this a 6. Actually, no, I'm going to give it a 7, because the art quality really shined in this one. The writing was better. Echo got screen time. The fighting was good, and it was animated well. The sound design, that was one thing I forgot to touch on. The sound design of the speeder scene, the whole sequence, all of that felt like Star Wars. All of the sound design felt like Star Wars. It was on point. It was really solid. So yeah, mostly because of Echo, the fact that Omega actually felt like a child and not a super soldier, which I get there's probably some genetics thing there, but like it felt more of a natural progression of even a super soldier child. And just the sound design, the art design, I'm going to give it a 7. I definitely recommend it. I worry for the future of the show. I'm not as worried as I was before watching this, but I really want to see the formulaic part of it dampened down so that we can have more wonder and not know necessarily what to expect. But yeah, all right. So what does that put us at for a total and an average?
Okay, we did a total of 32 points, which is 8.
8. Okay, 8's not bad. 8 is not
solid
bad.
8. More importantly, what we figured out is that our review show is the first movie of Fast and the Furious, and you're Dom, Moon is Letty, Knight is Jesse, and I'm Leon. And Pirate, when he gets back, he gets to be Vince.
I'm Dom. I win.
I don't actually understand that reference because I've never seen Fast and Furious.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is that we need to do reviews on all of the Fast and Furious movies. I'm gonna buy them. I'm gonna buy them for Clea.
Just the first one.
No, I called you. Dang it!
We didn't make it through an episode, guys.
No.
Very end. Very end.
No. Why? Well, so I want to buy him every Fast and Furious movie, and we're just gonna review them all. And I just want to hear his comment.
By the end, it's just gonna be.
What I need you to do is I need you to just imagine all of them as just magic powered cars, and then give your take based on that perspective. I think that'd be interesting to see.
As long as you can car hard, you can do anything in Vin Diesel car's hardest.
If you press the gas harder, you will go faster.
But Tower, the reason I'm calling him Jesse is he always likes to tinker with the build. Mm-hmm. So that's a Jesse.
That's a good one. I like it. All right. Well, that being said, thank you everyone for watching this very, very talkative episode of Fresh Reviews. I think this was a good one. I like it.
Good one.
I really hope. I want to give the next episode a 9.
I might end up doing it anyways.
Let me give... I want to give the next episode a 9, dang it. Let me... Writers, animators, sound designers, did good. Do better. Let me give you a 9. I know you don't give a crap what I say, but let me give you a 9, please. Please. Thank you. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching us here at Fresh Reviews. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to drop a like, comment, and tell us why... we already did Night recently. Why Moon is wrong! And
why am I wrong?
Why I'm perfect.
I'm perfect.
And also if you didn't like the video, you should also, if you didn't enjoy the review, you should also like the video because you just should. It's the lawful good thing to do. Bye!
Bye!
Off to watch some Fast and Furious.
Special thanks to our patrons, Blue Phoenix, Louie, Drew, Hollowed Zen, Antiox, Kazlor, Ninth Pawn, AJ, Evil Gummy Bear, A Knight Errant Gravy Train, and Suboptimal Preservation Society. Thanks, guys!